Hey everyone, it's Leanna George. I'm the author of the upcoming novel, Perfectly Arranged, and I am with Cynthia Roemer today. She is the author of the newly released book, Between These War-Torn Lands by Scrivenings Press, and I had the privilege of being on her launch team. And so I wanted to sit down with her and chat a little bit about the book, about her her journey as a writer, as an author, and a little bit about what we can expect from her in the future. So welcome, Cynthia. It's nice to visit with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's a joy.
Great. So Cynthia and I are both Scrivenings Press authors. We've had the privilege of meeting in person one time back in April, and we had just such a lovely time, and I truly enjoyed her. And I told her, I said, hey, I don't read historical fiction, but I'd love to be in your launch team and see what I can do to help you out, because I believe in collaboration over competition. So she was kind enough to take this person that does not really read historical fiction on and let her be part of her team. And so I'm grateful for that. But it's a wonderfully written book, a beautiful story. And we're going to get more into that. But I want to tell everybody a little bit about Cynthia. She is an inspirational award-winning author with a heart for scattering seeds of hope into the hearts of readers. I just love that. That's awesome. She was raised in the cornfields of rural Illinois, and she enjoys spinning tales set in the backdrop of the mid-1800s prairie and Civil War era. Her Prairie Sky series consists of Amazon's bestseller Under the Same Sky, Under Prairie Skies, and Under Moonlit Skies, a 2020 SALA Award winning novel. She writes for a family farm in central Illinois, where she resides with her husband of 27 years. And they have 2 grown sons and a daughter in love. Yes, one of her sons just got married this summer. I saw that on her social media. It was beautiful. And when she isn't writing or researching, she can be found hiking, biking, gardening, reading, or riding saddle side with her husband on the combine or on their motorcycle. So that's awesome. Motorcycles. Wow, that's interesting. I wouldn't have taken you for a motorcycle kind of girl.
Well, not heavy duty stuff, just to stroll through the countryside, just short rides. That's all we do. So.
Oh, that's so nice. I would think it's important for couples to have something fun to do together. So yeah. That's really great. Well, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about first, because I haven't read your Sky series. But I did, like I said, read Between These War-Torn Lands. We won't give any spoilers out for those who have yet to read it, but we highly encourage you to grab your copy from Amazon, from Scrivenings, from Barnes & Noble, from Cynthia's website, I'm sure, which we will talk about how you can connect with her. You can grab that copy of those there. But before we start getting into the book, let's just start talking about, why did you pick inspirational historical romance? What drew you to this genre specifically?
Well, I am very old-fashioned. I'm very nostalgic, old-fashioned. That's just me. I love Little House on the Prairie, that kind of era, anything wooden, we've got like New Salem State Park that I've always enjoyed visiting, which is where Lincoln spent some time when he was in his early 20s, before he hit it big with, and went to the Capitol. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that history, and I just love log cabins. I've always dreamed of living in a log cabin, so I'm just old-fashioned at heart, and so that was just natural for me. That's what I enjoy reading, and so that's what I enjoy writing. Now the romance part I've always had a problem with, because I don't consider that the main thrust of my novels. It's in there, and there's a love interest in there, but that's not what I build my novels around. I have plots and subplots and a storyline that involves both of the characters separately and together. They spend time apart and together, but that love interest is in there. So my publisher said, you need to consider it a romance, if that's in there. So
yeah, I'm with you. I like you, have been married for a very long time. And so when I had to start writing romantic scenes, very mild, but still, it was like, I don't remember dating. I don't remember what it's like, because I haven't done it in so long. So I'm with you. That's not the focus, but I get it. But it was a good love story. It was a good love story. And so I did enjoy that. But I did enjoy too, seeing their own storylines as well. So that was really good. So do you consider yourself a history buff?
In high school, I took history
Mm-hmm.
and I liked it some, but I really wasn't back then. I don't know when I really started getting more interested in history. I mean, I really didn't know about the Civil War. We watched the Blue and the Gray
Mm-hmm.
series. I don't know if anybody remembers that
I do.
back in high school.
Yeah.
And I like that. But I've never really studied the Civil War much until I started writing this book. And boy, I didn't know what I was in for when I started the research of this
Yeah.
book. A lot of research. So, in just a few years, like my Prairie Sky series, my first one starts in 1855,
Mm-hmm.
and the last one is in 1859. I think that's what sparked me wanting to write a Civil War, is because I got in Under Moonlit Skies, got into some of the pre-Civil War tensions between the slave states and the free states, because some of it takes place in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was right across the Ohio River from Kentucky, which was a slave state. And so if anybody reads Under Moonlit Skies, they'll get a taste of the tensions of this pre-Civil War tensions. And so then I'm like, well, this next one, and I've had people ask, why did I choose to write a Civil War rather than stick with the prairie? And I'm like, well, I kind of had thoughts of making it a fourth Prairie Sky book, but it was so different in nature. I just thought it best to, separate it out and have a whole new series, which I'm working on.
Yeah.
The second book starting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, I'm thinking you probably I was wondering when I read it and I saw all the research and the details that you had to have. I mean, anytime an author writes a book, you've got to have your details straight, or else your readers are going to catch you on it. But I think historical fiction readers, especially, they read it because they like that, or they're invested in that time period. And so they know their facts. And so you had to really know the details well. So, I'm thinking, did she study history in college? Does she, what's your background? But you did an awesome job getting all the facts and details straight.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that was
Well,
really
I've already had one person that was a historian. I didn't know it at the time. She was an ARC reader and she was a historian. And I'm like, oh. And she visited one of the battle sites that I feature in the book. And I'm like, it just kind of makes you sweat. Are they going to find something wrong? Because nobody, no matter how much you research, is going to get every little detail from 150, 60 years ago correct. And like you said, my major was English. It wasn't history. So, and then there was another person that just reviewed it that said they were a military historian, had a master's degree. And I'm like, and they said they were in love with the book. So I'm like, phew.
Oh, that's good.
So, so I'm relieved on that that people who have more knowledge than I do are not finding fault with it much. So
well,
that's a blessing.
That's a testimony to your writing skills and your research skills. So you should be applauded for that. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's really good. Well, so are you just 1800s Civil War era, or do you think you might expand as you continue to go?
Well, I'm not saying that I wouldn't write, and I'm interested in World War II era too, but I pray, God will lead me to, if he leads me to write something
Yeah.
in a different era, then I'm willing. I just, that's just the era that I've concentrated on so far. That's kind of the key era that I like. I like the expansion of the United States, and I guess I like the innocent era of the prairie,
Yeah.
and when things were more, innocent, I would say that's the word that comes to mind.
Yeah. I was thinking simpler. It seems like it was such a simpler time.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So no, that's beautiful. I love that. And so World War One or two, but contemporary, no, you don't think you could do a contemporary?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not saying I won't, but I just don't think I
No,
don't know.
that's
I
okay.
just like the historical.
No, that's okay. I can't imagine doing historical, so I'm right with you. And we should write what we feel comfortable, because if we don't, it comes across on the
Right.
page, and then the reader knows. So,
Right.
yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about all this research, because that was huge for you. Like you said, you spent a lot of time doing research. I mean, I was wondering to myself when I was reading the dialogue, I was thinking to myself, when she finished writing, would she come out of her writing cave and have to remember to speak, you know, 2021 English, or was she still, because they speak differently than we do now. They did. So
Mhm.
that was how you made it seem so real, was through the dialogue, but also, you had to know the customs and the culture of the time, and, all the different kinds of equipment and tools and different things just, had to be really precise. So how did you get all that down, or what was your technique for that?
Well, growing up a country bumpkin myself, but that that helps, having a rural background.
Mm.
I growing up, I um, grew up on a hobby farm with lots of animals, and now we're in the grain farming, and that's with my Prairie Sky series. That really helped, just having a rural background. Now the Civil War, that you just have to get a feel for the era, as far as the speech and everything. I don't know. That's just something that I've got built in me, I guess, from my research and watching movies, and from that era, and just something you kind of catch on to, I guess.
Yeah. Did your research consist of, like, did you just do books that you found, at the library or bought, or, internet searches? Did you do any visits to battle sites, or, things like that?
Oh, I so wanted to. I actually had plans to, or was hoping to. I didn't have plans made, but my critique partner, one of them lives an hour from one of the battles the opening battle scene.
Mhm.
And I was so in hopes that I could go out and visit her, because she gave me an invite to
Mhm.
stay at her house. And I thought that would be so neat to not only meet her, but be able to visit the battle site. Because it starts out the Battle of Monocacy Junction.
Mhm.
And then COVID hit,
Mm.
and they stopped the flights and everything. And then I got cancer.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
between those two things, that stopped me from visiting. But I do hope to someday make it out. It'll be too late for research for my novel, but it would still be neat to visit.
Definitely. Well, I think too, it would become that much more alive for you. I mean, knowing what you know
Yeah.
about it, you could probably in your mind see everything, which would be just so sweet, I think. So, um,
Yeah.
so museums, did you have any close by museums or anything that helped you? Or, like I said, what were your main resources?
For this novel, or for all my novels? Because I did, for my third novel, I went down to the National First Road Museum and visited it, which is in Vandalia, Illinois. So it wasn't too long of a trip. It was a day trip. But for this one, I had a couple of books that were very helpful. One book, I mean, I studied and studied and studied it. And then there was also some really helpful video. I don't want to give any spoilers
Sure.
about
We don't want to give any
the
spoilers.
second portion of my book. Deals with a very precise moment in history. And I don't want to say what it is, but I found some videos that were just perfect for, I mean, this guy, I don't know why he did it. I mean, maybe it was just for me. So, but he pinpointed, I mean, play by play, exactly what happened. And it was just perfect, what I needed.
Oh,
So,
what a blessing.
so online and what's that?
So that was a blessing for sure that you were able to have like that as a resource. That's great. That's great. Well, yeah, we don't want to give any spoilers, so we're just teasing people who are listening and watching. You want to get into this. So, okay, well, but we do want to talk a little bit about the book, and I want to talk about Caroline. I know Caroline and Drew are both, it goes back and forth between the two of them. But I guess because we're both females and we both probably identify more with the female heroine of the book. I think there's a lot that we put of ourselves into our characters. So how do you see yourself like Caroline?
Well, she's very, I don't know. I don't know how to describe. There is a lot of me in her. She was hurt. That's in her responses to, I'll go ahead and say, her relationship with her father was not good, and which is not at all my, in fact, and I don't want people to think that, because it's the opposite. My dad and I had a wonderful relationship, and he passed away this last October, just 2 weeks before I found out I had cancer. And so I dedicated the book to him. And in the dedication, I say that my dad was everything that Caroline's was not. So her response was hurt. And that's how I respond when someone's unkind to me or something. I get hurt and withdraw and draw inside and pray. And so her response to him was, and then I might get angry. And that was her second response. It started to go into bitterness and stuff. So and just her willingness to help people. That's something else that, if I see somebody in need, that's, just the instinct for me to go and help. And so, yeah, there's similar in nature, differences too, but.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now this is not going to ruin the story, but in the story, she wants to be a nurse. Was that something you wanted to do? Did you want to be a nurse?
Not at all. No. I never had ambitions to be a nurse. I just thought, that worked for the storyline.
Yeah.
That so.
No, it worked beautifully. So, but I just thought maybe I would ask, just to be curious. So, okay. So like I said, we're not going to give away any spoilers, but I do want to let's just talk about general themes. What do you consider the general themes? Because I read one of your blog posts, I think you put it out this week, about a reader who had said how deeply she was touched. And how when she closed the book, she really, walked away with a better understanding of the situation she was dealing with, which is something we always want as an author. So what are some of the themes that you hope will be able to resonate with people after reading this book?
Well, the overall theme that I wanted to come across is one that not only was pertinent back then, but I think it's very pertinent for today, something that is needed, a message that we need to learn to show Christ-like love in face of hatred and bitterness. And there's so much going on today that people are just responding back and forth with hatred. And we as Christians are called to be salt and light in this world. And if we don't step up, and even small thing, and that's what in the novel, Drew and Caroline realized that what they do, or what, that they've been through, is only a small thing. They may not have changed a nation, but even small things count. And that kindness instead of bitterness, responding, or resentment, and can make a huge difference. God can use that to make a huge difference. And this reader, that touched my heart to hear this reader. What she dealt with was a father, much like Caroline's father, that was very verbally abusive. And it just really brought up, she sent me an email that kind of described it a lot more than the words that I put in my blog. But and I don't want to, give out any
Oh, no.
anything that she wouldn't want me to. But she, after, the book brought up a lot from her past that she hadn't dealt with, apparently, and it was really hard for her, and she said she had to work through it, but in the end, she felt the freedom. She felt like the book was hard, or it was life-changing for her. And just to hear somebody say that is the biggest reward an author can, at least for me, that's the biggest reward that I can have, is to know God's used something I wrote to change a person's heart, and give her that peace she needed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. When I read, I was like, yeah, definitely a theme of forgiveness was, threaded through there. And it was so beautifully shown there as well. So yeah, that was beautiful. And then, like you said, there's nothing greater than knowing how your words affect, because that's what we want. We want to tell stories, but we want to tell stories that have hope and purpose and meaning for the people who read it. So that's beautiful. I love that. So, all right, well, let's shift a little bit, and I want to talk about your writing journey. Basically what you mentioned earlier, because you haven't been shy about it. You've shared it on social media, you've shared it, different places, that you had cancer, you got diagnosed with cancer. So how did you handle everything that you were going through with cancer treatments, the emotions, and then trying to get a book written at the same time?
Well, it wasn't easy, I'll say that. But I have to say God carried me through it all. I don't know, the writing, I never stopped writing. I was back in the infusion room getting my chemos, and I had my laptop back there working on my novel, and it was, I guess it was a great avenue of escape from my reality of cancer, just to continue and to have a goal to work towards, and knowing I had a deadline, coming up, and that I was determined to meet that deadline. And so I just did a lot of praying and just determination to, muscle through it. And of course I had times that, I just really didn't feel like it, but whenever I could, I was at it. So, and the research too, that I probably spent as much time researching as I did writing this book. It was very time consuming, and that's why it took nearly 2 years. I mean, I had part of the novel written, probably a fourth of it or so written, maybe a little more than that, before the cancer hit, but most of it I wrote after, I was diagnosed in October. So
yeah, that's amazing. On those days when I can't think, I can't do this, and I think about you, and I think about, there you are, like you said, getting infusions and sitting back in chemotherapy, and I just think, what are you complaining about? Get busy, because if Cynthia can go through cancer treatments while she's writing a book, you can as well. So you're such an inspiration. So I applaud you and
Oh,
thank you for that, but the good news is you're doing well, and you look great, and you've only got a few treatments
thanks.
left. So that's awesome.
Yeah. 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 And I have some hair.
No, you look beautiful. It's great. It's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing your journey about that and not keeping that, because I think it's not only is an inspiration, but it just gives people encouragement, that when difficult things are going to happen in our lives, we know that. Even the Bible tells us, we're not going to be immune to hard times. But to see your faith and your perseverance is just a great motivator. So that's beautiful.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Well, I think we need each other. I mean, I, I, shared it on my friends page only, for the most part, because I coveted the prayers of my friends, because prayer is powerful. And so, keeping it to yourself, you're not only taking on that whole burden yourself, but you're missing out on the blessing of prayer and encouragement of others. And like you say, hopefully encouraging them back. So I
Definitely.
always wanted to share a scripture each time a scripture that was encouraging and kind of telling where I was at in my journey,
Mhm.
something that encouraged me. And several people, would say that really encouraged me back. So,
Yeah.
well, that was nice.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice. That's really lovely. Well, what inspires you to write? What motivates you? What inspires you? What started you on this writing journey?
Well, I don't know that. Um, I don't know. That's just something God's put in me, I guess. Back in high school, I don't know. I've shared this on some things, but my first ambitions for being a writer started when I was a junior in high school, and my English teacher encouraged me to write and enter a contest at the local college. They were offering it to high schoolers, and she knew I liked to write, and so I submitted two, and one of them didn't get anything, but the other one won first place in its category. So that encouraged me, and then I decided I'm gonna major in English and creative writing in college. I went 2 years to a um, Christian college,
Mhm.
just because I wanted to spend some time in a Christian college, and then I transferred to a university, and thankfully all my credits transferred, so I was able to get through in 4 years. But I majored in English,
Mhm.
creative writing, and they allowed me to spend, at the end of your, right before you graduate, the 6 months before you graduate, they want you to do some 300 hours worth of on the job experience.
Mhm.
And so I petitioned them asking if I could um, use that to research and write a novel.
Oh,
And they allowed me to do that. So I was able to do that while in college. And I wrote a rough draft of, I don't know if I finished it completely, but my first novel that is now in print, Under This Same Sky, was
oh,
what I wrote during college. But it was a lot different back then than it is now. It's gone through, it sat for about 20 years.
hmm.
After I got married and had kids, I put my novel ambitions aside, but I still wrote short stories and articles for Christian magazines. And then and back in 2012 is when I started. Somebody told me about ACFW, American Christian Fiction Writers Group, and that's what started me back up on the novel um, kick. So,
Oh,
so it's
okay.
been then since then that I've been doing the novels. So,
Oh, that's a lovely story. I like that. That's great. I always like to hear people's, because I'm a storyteller and I love stories. I love hearing people's story, how they got started. That's great. So, okay, well, because I could talk forever, but I know people don't want to watch forever and they're busy. So I'll move on. Let's talk about you being a farmer's wife, because I find that really interesting, because I I know nothing about being a farmer's wife, even though we own land. The most I know how to do is clip a chicken wing. So that's as good as it gets for me. But what's that like, and how does it affect or influence your writing?
Well, my husband farms with his brother, so I don't do field work really. I'm more of the garden. I handle the garden. The garden's my baby.
Okay.
But I get involved with, I keep up on things, and go over. We used to live on the main base of the farm, and I liked being around the hub of it. But that house was his grandparents' house, and it was shot. So we put up a house about 3 miles away on another part of the farm.
Okay.
And so I'm off the main base now, but I like to keep tabs of what's going on, and I'm, like I said, the gardener in the family, and so and I like to ride. My favorite thing is to ride in the combine, and I have driven the combine a few times on my own, but not too often.
Well, I just thought maybe, because when I read your bio, it talked about, scattering seeds of hope. And I just thought, I wonder if how much of her farmer life plays into her writing life and that things. Or, I also know that being a farmer is a lot of work and requires a lot of time. And so I wasn't sure how involved you were, if that affected your ability to have time to write or not. So I just thought I'd ask. Yeah. It's a fascinating. Everybody just thinks, authors are, we sit in our little cubbies and just do things, but we're real people with lives, and,
Right.
And if we don't have a life, then we don't have anything to write about. So it's always
Exactly.
to see how our outside lives, affect our author world. So, all right. So what's next on the horizon for you and the Wounded Hearts series?
Well, I'm trying to work on book 2,
Mhm.
and it's coming together kind of slow, but so I'm giving that a lot of prayer. But it's going to be the story of, I introduce a character, Drew's younger brother Luke, in Beyond These War-Torn Lands, and this is going to be his story, and we'll meet the new character, the heroine. Her name is Adelaide, and she goes by Addie. That's her nickname. And she's kind of a spitfire Southern gal. And so this one starts out near within the last week of the war, and is more on taking place during the Reconstruction era of the Civil War. So I'm currently trying to research that time period and formulate more about the story. But so I'm not too far in yet, but I'm getting excited about it, and praying that it will come together like the first one did. So
yeah, well, and we'll be praying that along with you, because I know it can take time to get it just right, and that's what we want to do. But we know that people are out there, and especially after they read this, they're going to be like, "What's next? When are we going to get the next one?" So, yeah. It's good to let them know that you're working on it. You're getting there. You haven't abandoned readers completely, so that's awesome. How can people connect with you? How can they find you?
Well, I have a website, CynthiaRoemer.com. That's my website. And then I have a books page that tells about all 4 books so far, and how to connect with me. And then I'm also on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and let's see. I don't know, there's several of the social medias. They can look up Cynthia Roemer, but the Facebook, and I have a Facebook author page too, where they can connect. So,
and they can follow you on Amazon, BookBub, and Goodreads too, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Cynthia, thank you for your time and thank you for allowing me to be on your launch team. It was wonderful. And I hope that I have helped you a little bit in sharing the word about your wonderful book, because it is just that. And I just pray that you will continue to heal, and that you will, when the time is right, the book will come to you, and then you probably can't write fast enough. So, but we'll be praying for you. We'll be
All
praying for
right. Well,
you, and
thank
look
you.
forward to seeing what's next in your Wounded Heart series, which I will look forward to reading. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we will look forward to the next launch interview. I'm not sure when that will be,